This is going to be a run through of the tide tables itself and what the major sections are and how you could really go about reading it. So obviously we've got a bunch of introductory stuff at the top here. Basic regulatory notices, things like that. Really, what you need to know starts on page 10. So when we come, or 10 in the PDF. So we come here. This is the list of main stations, or this is the first of the main stations. Now, what a main station is just a major oceanographic station that's used to very, very precisely measure the height of tide at any given time. And they've got these scattered all around the world. This book is, like it said at the top, just for the East Coast of North and South America. So you could see we started up in, I don't know how well you could read that, Argentia, Newfoundland. Sure. And how this is broken down is it can show you every day for the entire year of 1983, which is the year that, STCW was standardized, so that's the one they use. Every single day for the entire year, broken up by month here. You'll show on a given day the time and height of every maximum tide, either high tide or low tide. So on the 1st of January, you could see the first high tide on the 1st of January occurs at 0240 in the morning with a height of 1.2 feet or 0.4 meters. As usual, you can ignore the meters. Then the low tide occurs at 9:30 with a height of 0.7 feet above the datum. And it continues like that over and over and over again all throughout the year. You can see here we've got May in Argentia, and you can come down, you get all the same information. This is just for the first main station. As you can see, they go on for probably the largest chunk of the book itself. I'll just skip a little further down. Here we have Portland, Maine. Willets Point, New York, and so on. This one actually goes all the way down. It says the east coast of South America, but I think it only stops at like Suriname, so it doesn't really go all the way down South America. Anyway, these are all the largest stations that are most critical to measuring the height of tide, but these require a pretty substantial amount of equipment and labor to maintain. So these are scattered across the coast, relatively distant from each other, and therefore it's not necessarily helpful, where you might specifically be trying to go. There might not be a main station there for you. So I've already written down the page numbers. If we come to page 76, you can see up here we've got the end of the main stations, and then just a little, there's the end of the main stations. And then here's just a section describing how to then proceed with the book, because what we've got here is the substations list. What this is a much larger number of smaller oceanographic stations. These might not even be, I don't know how these work, but they're probably not manned. They might just be like remote monitoring stations. So just a bunch of equipment on maybe a buoy or something. All throughout the coast as well, with every chunk of them being defined off of a specific main station. So all of these, Cartwright Harbor, Curlew Harbor, Comfort Bight, these are all the substations that are in close proximity to Halifax, which is a main station. These main stations don't all... You can see that we might be missing a page up at the front because we started at 171. So I bet you Argentia, Newfoundland is probably in the page we lost. But with Halifax, they measured every single height of tide all throughout the year, And then with these stations, all they do is they measure the difference between their heights of tide and the times of those heights with what was going on in Halifax. And so therefore we're able to create the consistent difference between the two. So you can just look at Halifax's times and heights and then adjust them slightly to get to each of these. So for instance, Cartwright Harbor, let me focus better. Yeah, Cartwright Harbor, you can see the time of high water at Cartwright Harbor happens 3 minutes before it does at Halifax. And low water happens 34 minutes before Halifax. The height of a high water is 1.7 or 1.3 feet above what it will be at Halifax, and the height of the low water will be 0.4 feet lower than it is at Halifax. So what this means is, well, these corrections are consistent throughout the year. They're not just true for one day or 1 week, they will be true for the entire year. So if you get any single height at any single time at Halifax, you can automatically find what is at Cartwright Harbor, or Curlew Harbor, or what is that, Square Island Harbor, all throughout there. If we scroll through, this is another pretty large section. You can see, like, now we're back in Maine again. Here we're down to Massachusetts. Manchester Harbor can be defined off of Boston, so can Marblehead, and it continues. The other information shown there is just the position of the substation, and then the range of tide, which isn't necessary. You can usually calculate that yourself pretty quickly. And the neap tide, oh, okay, neap tides. I could probably have a video talk going into this stuff later, but I haven't really planned for that. Realistically, these differences here are the most important ones, and the position and the ranges aren't particularly critical. Continues like this all the way throughout the coast. I'm not sure why that chart is just thrown into the center of the substations there. I don't think that's correct. All right. Then the next major section of the book we can come down to is a table called height of tide at any time. Here are the instructions for using it. By the way, most of these tables in most of these publications, even if you didn't get taught to them, if you put in the effort of actually reading these instructions, you can usually figure it out yourself. It continues. Here's a representation of the tidal curve, like I talked about before. And then this is the table itself, the height of tide at any time. So, like I said, you could use these correction factors of the substations to identify to you the differences between that substation and the main station. And doing so, you could find the accurate times of high and low water and the heights of high and low water for those substations for any day of the year. But that's still only finding you know, your high and your low water. What if you don't care about that? What if you are coming into a port at a specific time and you want to know what the height of tide will be then? Well, you can use this table here to apply a correction factor to adjust from the height at that high tide or that low tide down to what specific time you want it to be. The way it does this is it compares the duration of rise or fall, like I showed in the last video, the time between the high and the low, the range of the tide, which is, you know, the difference in height between the high and the low, and then here is the last factor, the time from the nearest high or low water. So whatever your desired time is, how far away it is from the closest either high or low water. And then by comparing these three things together, you can get a correction factor that you can then apply to that nearest high or low water, and that will give you the exact height of time at that time. Now, this is kind of tedious. It's not necessarily difficult. What makes it a little more difficult, though, is that sometimes you'll be asked the reverse question. You'll be given a specific height of tide, and it'll ask you at what time will the tide be this height. And so the way you do that is you'd have to work this table backwards. We'll get into how you do that, though, later. Now, the final section of the book, just like the light lists, is an index going through all of the substations in alphabetical order. So if ever you were told, hey, find the height at Clifton Beach, you wouldn't have to then just like sift through the pages looking, hopefully finding Clifton Beach. You could come back here, see, oh, okay, it's Clifton Beach, reference number 2215. So I don't know if you remember, but if we go back to the substations, every single station had a reference number to its left. So here's at the hundreds. If we scroll down, probably shouldn't take that long to get to, there's the thousands. Let's see, 1900, 2217, 2215, Clifton Beach, Maryland. Perfect. So that makes it relatively easy to navigate through the book, and those are really the main sections you're going to need to know. The main stations, the substations, the height of tide table, and the index. And with those 4 things, you can pretty easily get through any problem you're going to be asked.